Here we are starting our adventure at the Dearborn Village.
Greenfield Village.
Greenfield?
Yeah.
I thought it was Dearborn.
It's in Dearborn.
Oh, okay.
Just ready.
So now we're just waiting for the entries to open. So we're sitting here in front of the fountain listening to Monty Python music. So anyway, we'll take you on our trip and our journey today and see what sights and things we see today.
Yep, but we even have our wristbands so we can get off and on all the rides.
That's
right.
right.
There's only like, I don't think it's like rides like amusement parks, but like Model T, horse drawn carriage, and something else. We'll find out.
Yep. So we are on the train and we're headed around the village. So we're starting our adventure now.
We're embarking on a 30-minute journey around the entire perimeter of Greenfield Village. We have 2 additional stops today, the Susquehanna Plantation and Smith's Creek Depot. My name is Jim. I'll be your conductor and narrator for the ride. If you have any questions or anything you're seeing or hearing, you can ask me on the station platform.
There's a fountain.
Our journey begins at the Ford Farm, built in 1861 in what is now Dearborn, Michigan. The farmhouse was the birthplace of Henry Ford, one of the greatest industrial figures of the 20th century. Mr. Ford was born in the upper bedroom of that house on July 30th, 1863.
So we're at our first stop. Looks like they're getting ready to plant the fields. They were just putting down the string over there. And that one to the far was already set, so apparently they made a right angle. And I don't know what they're going to do off of that, but they all have sticks. So I'm assuming they're going to either poke holes or corn. Oh, it does say corn. That stake says corn. Good eyes, honey. So let's watch what he does. Yeah.
How they're creating the roads
It's literally how we fuel up our steam locomotives.
We're stopping for water. The train engine is thirsty. Oh, you're fine.
This is the fireman areas climbing out of the cab and into the tender area of the locomotive. In the tender area of the locomotive, as the fuel tank, it actually holds the water and the coal, the 2 elements of fuel that power this locomotive. Fireman's reaching up to the side of the water tower, pulling down the trough with the backwind hook. Once he gets the trough lined up with the receptacle, he'll begin pumping several hundred gallons of water into the tank. This particular locomotive burns about a half a ton of coal every day to boil about 1,500 gallons of water. That boiled water creates the steam that powers that locomotive and pulls the train.
Very cool. Pretty dirty job.
That whistle means we're ready to move ahead here. We'll continue our journey in the Railroad Junction District. Brick building on the left is the Detroit Toledo Milwaukee Roundhouse, originally built in Marshall, Michigan. In 1884, reconstructed as the village in the year 2000. I mentioned that because it was the last reconstructed building until now. The fenced-in area across the street from the Roundhouse. We are recreating the vegetable building from the original Central Market in Detroit. They've been working pretty hard over there most of the spring months, and then we'll continue through the summer into the fall here. Completion is TBD, but they've been making some great progress.
So that was our train, and now we're heading into the village. So we're gonna walk in that way and walk around and see what we can find.
Henry Ford birthplace, Henry Ford Model T. Whoa, So we just kind of don't like not having a plan.
Let's get on the other side of the tracks before the train runs over us. So now we are entering the glass shop. So they're going to be making glass. So let's see what this looks like. Ooh, and it's already warm in here.
Getting ready to cut these rounds attached to the pipe like this. Hot glass, fixing things that are hot, cooling other things with hot glass. And you have a small amount of glass fingerprints and stuff. I'll do that for Christmas. Kind of smoothing and shaping glass. Very important to keep everything centered. That's the reason for the rotation of the pipe. Sand is our raw material. No. Look up on the internet. These are full-time employees. Up carefully, you can see the bubble of air that was pumped down that pipe to make that cylinder pipe.
It's really bright in that oven. Yeah. Now those are some big pots behind me. And let's go into the pottery shop.
People who are already pretty accomplished to apply.
So he's done with this, see how he puts the stamps in it? So whenever you look at it, here. What? Require it.
Not even out to
So if there's decorations that go on it, then before it gets totally dry, what will happen is they'll do what's called slip trailing. Slip trailing is where you take liquefied clay and you put the design on the surface of the clay before this gets totally dried out. Otherwise, it's not going to properly bond or adhere. And what they do to get different colors is they add different oxides or elements blended into the wood.
So we are at the roundhouse. This is where the trains would come in into the station and get turned around so they can go back out on the same track going the opposite way. that come in on that track, and then somebody or something would move them around, and they could position them going out on what other track. Actually, those are going into being services, but the tracks would go to wherever they wanted those destinations.
Kind of perfect. Keep going around now.
So, machines.
Go train.
That's how they service underneath them. Pretty interesting. I like that. That's kind of like our crane at home across the studio.
Yeah, very cool.
That's how they fill it with water from that one. No, actually, they did fill it with this one. I was going to say, I wonder how they get the water from there to there, but we went past that. That's the one we were sitting under. That's the one they actually filled it from. And there's the coal pile. You zoomed in on the coal? So that's how they filled it. And they used real coal. Real coal. So this must just be the coal chute. Makes sense. So the coal comes down there. Oh, I get it now. So they lower that bucket down, use that lever, and the coal goes in, and then they raise that and dump it. Gotcha. Then it's all just gravity fed from there. Ingenious. First, that's how they had to do it. Let's continue on.
I don't know where we're going, but I do know I want you with me.
That's right. That's an ode to Mike Downing from Downing Live.
Speaking of trains.
Yeah, speaking of trains, Michael, you've got to come and ride this train and report on it. It's not too far from you.
It's a 30-minute drive.
30-minute
ride.
ride. Yep. We are now at Main Street, and now we're just trying to figure out, oh, there's the Eagle Tavern sign.
Yep.
So to our left. So
There's
we'll go to the Eagle. Oh, and the horsies.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do. The carousel here. All right, love you. Bye.
And the carousel's in here. I think they're doing a little construction on it. So let me get in the shade. So yeah. Cool lion. And a horsey. Tiger.
All fun for the kids.
Yep. It looks like the Kid Kingdom's back there, or Kids Playground. I think we will avoid that for now. Let's go find the Eagle Tavern.
Lunch.
Lunch. Oh. Let's go horsey. All right. Sign says Eagle Tavern that way. Oh. That must be Sarah Jordan. All right. Let's go that way.
Apparently we now found where all the people are.
Yes.
We were on the outskirts of like where the railroad junction is, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. Hardly anybody here, which is true. But this is where everybody's at, Main Street.
That's why they call it Main Street.
Must be the tourist trap.
All right. Let's
Well, the main artery, so it's a little. So.
All right, so I'm going to have the Kentucky Maple Sour with bourbon, maple syrup, and lemon juice. And Dawn is going to have, what did you?
Ginger lemonade and rum. Of all things, I'm having rum.
Oh. So you'll notice that Kentucky Maple Sour is DO. And what does DO stand for?
Do over. So all the prices above it, like the first price, you can't see where I'm pointing to, but like the one says the price, all the ones underneath it in those categories, basically mean they're all the same price. Kind of like ditto.
Ditto marks.
Yeah, but they did it that way back a long time ago because it was expensive to print. It costs more money to print more words, so if it's the same as one above, DO is 2 letters versus a lot more letters. And look at this lovely little bread tray.
Yes.
We'll have to partake in some.
Yep. What was this? The plum sauce?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
You can have that. So let's eat.
Bon appetit.
So you can see it's kind of like family dining. We share a table. Cheers. Let me try yours. Nope, that's rum. So now, let's see where we want to go next while we're waiting for our food.
We're right now at Eagle Tavern, 89. It's gotta be right here. Goes the other eatery.
That's around the corner.
I can't read that number. Is it C38?
I don't know. It's dark in here.
It's too dark. Well, we want to get to see the horse-drawn carriages, so we can go that way.
Yeah.
Remember, oh, we got that. Remember, and we got ride pass.
Yep. We can do that.
Yep. I feel you just gotta walk it because this map gets you kind of turned around. And it's, I mean, as big as this is, it doesn't feel like it's that big. Maybe because all the people there's not a ton of people here.
Yeah.
Oh, so here comes our food.
Oh,
Get back on your own side.
here comes our food.
You don't mess around, do you?
Ooh.
Eventually, you have to go home myself. Right? Yum.
Looks good. Now, it's time to eat. Ooh.
Oh, this is weird. Because for some reason it felt like it.
Imagine yourself as a school child in the late 1800s. You may have walked several miles to get to a one-room school like this one. If you didn't linger along the way, you would have time to play with your friends in the schoolyard before the teacher rang the bell to begin classes. Then it was time to settle down to a full-day study, which may have included reading, penmanship,
There's a basement.
arithmetic, spelling, geography, history, music, and art. Boys sat on one side of the school, girls on the other.
As it should be.
Children sat in the front rows, just behind the recitation benches. And the oldest children sat in the back. Certain regular chores were assigned to specific pupils, often on a weekly or monthly basis. One child might be given the responsibility of bringing in firewood.
It's the rope
fresh drinking
that
water.
lets you bring or ring the bell.
Or clean snow from the doorstep in the wintertime.
Right, let's go forward.
Some schools, when there was
Down that street is Porches and Parlors, which I think is just a bunch of homes or houses, or in this case log cabins, but down here a little bit more modern old homes. So let's continue on our journey. Oh, you're full? Well, we get to walk it off.
I'll go more this way. This
All right.
is more colonial Williamsburg than me.
Yeah.
I just kind of like taking pictures of the buildings from like an angle.
Yep.
And without the people doing it. The people over there are going to get mad. We'll come.
See what this house is. George Washington Carver cabin. The outside of this building was modeled after the Missouri slave cabin where George Washington Carver was born. It's based on his memories of the cabin. Oh. Let's go see what it is. Yep.
He found new uses for these products to build up a market for the crops. His work with peanuts and the many uses he found for them brought him international fame.
I didn't say anything. I knew it was peanut. Did you ask me?
Like Carver, Ford was concerned that too many people were leaving their farms for industrial jobs.
This must be his bag.
Memorial built at Greenfield Village as a tribute to Carver. He also named a food laboratory after him. George Washington Carver was a scientist who looked to nature to provide answers to many problems. In his laboratory, classrooms, and lectures, he inspired people to respect the world and the environment, live in harmony with nature, and help themselves.
Is this his kitchen? Huh. This is really nice if you're living by yourself.
I don't know what all the names are for. Oh, it's a type of wood. I thought there were people's names.
George Washington
Interesting.
slavery in Missouri toward the end of the Civil War.
Who would have known?
He left home around the age of 12 and attended many schools supporting himself.
Now we're going to enter into the courthouse, which is adjacent to George Washington Carver's house. So, let's see what this looks like.
I think we got tired of trying them in taverns, which they normally would do, because not everyone had access. They could, not ladies couldn't go in, things like that.
Gotcha.
So they started with the courthouses. So this one was built in 1840. This is the actual courthouse, and those are the courthouses that Abraham Lincoln traveled to, and to hear the cases twice a year, spring and fall. The lawyers would arrive in these small towns. The towns were very excited. New people were coming They had a lot of information about things that were happening in the area, so that was exciting. Plus it was entertainment. People came from all over through small towns to hear the cases. They would picnic, we even had dances before court week started. They were so excited, yeah. All-male jury, usually wealthy land or business owners. And then the lawyers or clients would gather there, of course, the judge. And those lawyers and judges would take turns traveling that circuit. A lot of lawyers, you know, you were away from your family, and it was costly too, you know, to be away. So they, a lot of lawyers didn't like it, but Abraham Lincoln loved it. He loved getting out there, meeting the people, hearing their concerns, and it served him well. Yeah, so this was the actual courthouse, built in 1840 in Postville, Illinois, which is part of Lincoln, Illinois now.
Very cool.
Yeah. Oh, he's
There's the courthouse. Okay, where to next?
You gotta jump on those trains.
The horsies? Back to Dawn. Where'd she go? There she is. Oh, another horsey. That one escaped.
I don't know. I think this handler's got a handle on it. Oh, Edison works. I think this is really good.
Yeah. I think there's the Edison place.
Edison at work. Oh, here's a little hut.
Oh, she's got a gun. I think she was texting and driving.
Or stick a ball, or two.
Oh yeah, she's probably doing that too. All right, let's go in here, see what's in this way. So this is where he worked, but it's
First place.
so. But we actually saw his house in
Yeah. Milan, Ohio.
Milan, Ohio. Yes.
Which is near Norwalk, Ohio, drag racing strip.
Which is how we found it, by accident. All right. Great.
No, I was gonna say, which is Summer Nationals right now at Norwalk.
Oh, I know. We're missing this. They're drag racing. All right. Let's go see what we have in here.
Laboratory FT.
Edison. 1878. Oh, that was the heater or boiler or something. I think that was to generate heat for the steam for the probably that big flywheel that drove all the belts in there, that drove all the equipment in the other place. So let's walk around.
Wiggled and tickled inside. Get it? Get it? The boiler that fed the...
Oh yeah, powering the operation. So that boiler next door created the steam to drive that piston, to drive that flywheel, to drive the belt drive that goes through the factory, and coming down from each drive pulley is the belt-driven equipment. So we have here the dynamomer.
Dynamos.
So very cool. Look at that serpentine belt. And these are the coils that created electricity. I am right. Yeah, so those would be the generators. Basically a motor in reverse. So very cool. What do you think, honey?
I think that I like it that there's nobody here. So I don't have to go around people, take pictures. I like it just get the place to myself.
Yep.
But it is cool. That what the original
Yep.
question was about.
So each step is how they geared the speed of the machine, and then they could further reduce it, I think, with the gears here. Or there. I don't exactly know how that's geared. Drill press, double drill press. Very cool. And of course, an Edison light bulb. So there's the different gears for ratios, and all of that works. And a grinding wheel. And at the end of the line of the belt, very, very, very cool. It's got ladies out of my picture.
You want a picture?
So from a manufacturing standpoint, I've been in a lot of factories. This is still cool. This is very cool, in fact. Just to see how they did it in the old days. No CNCs. All belt driven, off of steam at the other end. Very, very cool.
Look at this drill press. This is crazy.
Yeah. Wood floors. The foreman's office. I don't know if you can read that or not. So this building let's see what this looks like.
Nobody's here.
Yeah. Oh, more belt-driven stuff. Oh, yeah.
Oops, that was not smart.
The telephone room. So I'm not quite sure what this contraption is. Obviously it's three things that get burnt, get heated, get steamed, maybe? galvanometer, which measured the amount of electrical current used to run a motor or light a light, was wired to experiments throughout the complex. It was so sensitive to vibration that it had to be anchored to brick pillars embedded in the ground.
Are you interested in the galvanometer?
Yeah.
That's this square box right here. It's called the reflecting galvanometer. It's a very, very sensitive piece of equipment. The way it worked, there's a little mirror inside that, suspended by magnets.
Okay.
And then there's coils of wire around that. So when a small electrical current went through that, it would make the mirror swivel just slightly. It would reflect the light from the kerosene lamp that had been shining through that lens off the mirror and reflected right back onto the steel. So instead of looking at a needle, you'd be watching a beam of light moving back and forth across the steel. There's a diagram.
Oh, okay. I get it.
Wow.
The reflecting galvanometer.
Lord Kelvin.
Yes, Lord Kelvin invented it. In fact, he was knighted because of his work with the galvanometer. With this, we were finally able to send a message across a transatlantic cable using Morse code. The regular Morse code equipment is not sensitive enough because the signal would kind of get blurred together, the dots and dashes. With this, they could watch the little beam of light. Dots and dashes. And finally, we were able to get the transatlantic cable from the United States to Europe.
Very cool.
His name was William Thompson. Later on, he was called Lord Kelvin because of his further work that he did. They named him Lord Kelvin because the River Kelvin ran by his laboratory in Scotland.
Yeah, we use his numbers a lot because we're photographers, so all of our lights are in Kelvin. So 5,500 Kelvin is what we aim for.
Yeah, he was the one that came up with the number to represent absolute zero.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Today, they use these reflecting galvanometers to make laser light shows.
Oh, because they
would shine a laser light in the mirror and use a computer to move the mirror and make the patterns.
Oh, so cool.
So it has a modern day application. Well, they also have reflecting galvanometers using sensitive equipment.
So driving cats crazy since 1800.
Well, there's that. There's that, right?
It was so sensitive to vibration, they couldn't use it at first. If someone walked across the floor, it was like an earthquake.
Yeah, I noticed the pillars.
Yeah, they cut holes in the floor. They put those 10 feet down into the ground.
Oh, really?
And after that, it was just as solid as a rock. So they used the galvanometer on this.
So they isolated this platform from the rest of the building.
Oh, wow.
After that, it worked perfectly. Except most of the equipment was upstairs.
Oh.
Oh.
So they had to run wires up through the ceiling up to the second floor. So they would be up there, they'd turn on their equipment, come down here to take the reading, and they'd run back upstairs, make the adjustments, come back down and take another reading.
Oh, no.
So, but they did a lot with what they had to do.
Yeah. That is so cool.
That's what's amazing about this is what they had and what they used.
Stuff we take for granted,
Yeah.
right?
That's right. Hi, how are you?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Upstairs is open.
Oh.
It's been closed for a year.
Really?
Dang,
COVID.
I hope they cleaned.
They move it back and forth between the two light sources so they can tell it was equally lit in both directions.
Okay.
They measured how close the mirror was to the candle. From that, they could calculate how many candle power was coming from the light. That's how candle power was made. Measure brightness. So it's really cool. Thank you.
That's cool.
You're welcome.
Little tidbits of information, right?
Information you know you were interested in.
Kind of dark in there.
So that light, tape measure or wood stick measure, and then a candle.
Even specialists could bet.
Oh, actually, and the thing to measure it right there.
He hired a chemist to work in the chemistry lab. He hired a Methodist.
Going upstairs.
Everyone would gather around the organ, and anyone who knew how to play would be invited to sit down and play a song. They would sing along. Thomas Edison himself knew how to play a bit, so he would occasionally sit down. But his men told him he needed to keep his day job. He wasn't all that good on the organ.
Band organ.
Now this picture was taken in 1880, 1 year after he perfected the light bulb. Thomas Edison is sitting in the middle of the group of guys. The men around him are his brain trust who worked on the upper floor with him. But Edison's sitting in the middle wearing a beanie cap. The men around him, and then look behind them. I have been working here for 14 years. I've been coming here for over 60. I had never heard that organ played. And I had been told that it hadn't been played for 50 years prior to my coming to work here 14 years ago. 3 years ago, as the season was getting prepped, we heard them tuning up the organ, and everybody was like, what's going on? That year, they played the organ for the first time in over 50 years for the Holiday Night Christmas program. It was so popular, it has now become an institution for holiday nights, and they're beginning to do it for other programs. Like last year, they did it for the Wright Brothers Day of Celebration here. They were playing it all day. So if you're a member, keep an eye on your bulletins. They will tell you when that's going to happen. If you're not a member, it's a good reason to get a member. No, I'm not here to do that. No. Now, I don't want anyone to... Yes, my darling, you have a question for me?
Was it a long walk when you come here?
Was it a long walk?
Oh, from his house.
From Thomas Edison's house, not very long of a walk. It was about 2 blocks. He lived 2 blocks up the street. And he would walk to work and home every day. 2 blocks. Nice exercise, a good stretch of the legs. Let him clear his mind from all of the clutter that got built up during the day.
Yep.
Now, we call this thing the corpse revival. And it works like this. If Mr. Edison came up the stairs and saw one of his men asleep, he would go to his desk and get the corpse revival. He would come over next to the sleeping guy. He would quietly put it on the floor, and he would go, shh, John's asleep. Let's wake him up. And he would do this. Guys, I don't know about you, but if I'm asleep and somebody does that right next to me, I'm going to see you soon. Now, it's 1929. Henry Ford is ready to open Greenfield Village to the general public for the very first time. 1929 was also the 50th anniversary of the very first demonstration of electric lights by Thomas Edison in Menlo Park, New Jersey, back in 1879. Henry Ford and Thomas Edison were best friends, closer than a lot of brothers. Mr. Ford wanted to honor his best friend's greatest accomplishment with a huge party to go along with the opening of Greenfield Village. They called the party the Lights Golden Jubilee. Thomas Edison was 82 years old, still living in New Jersey. He was invited to come to Dearborn and recreate that first demonstration of electric lights. He agreed. The President of the United States came. Orville Wright, one of the inventors of the airplane, was here. Madame Marie Curie, one of the greatest female scientists of all time, was here. Will Rogers, the great comedian. Folks, anyone who was anyone in America in 1929 came to Dearborn for this party. For weeks before the party happened, they broadcast all across the United States in the newspaper and over the radios, asking people at home to listen in on their radio. The event would happen such and such a day, such and such a time. Listen in on your radios. Turn off your lights at home. And at the moment when Thomas Edison hits the switch in Dearborn, we're going to broadcast it out. CBS News, NBC News was set up right here where you folks are standing.
We're going to broadcast it out. We're going to ask you people at home to turn your lights back on, and we're going to try to light up America. Ladies and gentlemen, that actually happened. The picture I'm about to show you was taken moments before Thomas Edison hit the switch. Thomas Edison, at the age of 82, is sitting in the chair. Can we all see him? My friends, he is sitting in this chair. This is the actual chair that you see in this picture taken in 1929, over 90 years ago. Now, standing next to Thomas Edison, Henry Ford. Standing next to Henry Ford, President Herbert Hoover. The guy over on this side of the picture, his name is Francis Yale. When Thomas Edison first opened the Menlo Park Labs in 1876, this guy was 16 years old. Came to work for Thomas Edison as one of his first laboratory assistants, sweeping up, taking out the trash, every now and then working on an experiment if they let it. Still alive in 1929, he came to help with the demonstration. Moments after this picture was taken, they gave Thomas Edison the signal. He leaned over from the chair to the table, hit the switch. The lights came on. NBC News broadcasted out all across America. People at home turned on their lights. We literally lit up America. Thomas Edison stood up out of the chair, walked over to this side of the room. Henry Ford was waiting with two of his workers. Mr. Ford told the workers to nail the chair to the floor. It was never to be moved again. If the building stands another 200 years, it's already been up over 90, another 200 years, this chair will be right here 200 years from today. Today, you can see that the floor around the chair has all been changed over the last 90 plus. These are the boards that were underneath that chair on that day in 1929 when the great Thomas Edison stood up and walked away. Folks, to the best of my knowledge, only one other person has been allowed to sit in that chair in the 90 plus years since Thomas Edison stood up. Helen Keller came here in the mid-1930s. Helen Keller, kids, was a very world-famous lady. She was blind and deaf from the time she was a baby, but she overcame those disabilities with the help of a great teacher and a supportive family to become world-famous as an author. She came here, but because she couldn't see, she saw through touch. They let her sit in the chair and see through the feel of her hands and body.
Good job.
With that, we have the upper floor. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Bye.
So this is the copy machine. So they used that pen, which was basically a needle, and they'd put wax paper there, and they'd trace on whatever, and then they'd put ink on the roller and roll it and put a piece of paper underneath it and roll the ink through it. And now that is actually a tattoo instrument today, but back then it was invented to be a copy machine.
Radio program, classical music, doctor, something from
Back there is Edison's table, his very own workspace.
Because the mama bird, as they were waiting to be hatched, the mama bird, every time somebody came around, she would leave. And when they were first hatched, she would take off, and we thought they were starving to death. But she was able to get them enough that they have grown, and they're almost ready to go on out there and leave that nest.
Yeah, Mommy was just here feeding one of them.
Yeah.
The train! The train! Alright, that wasn't a real good joke. But there's Edison's factory. Well, one of them anyway. So now, we're moving on. See what this building is. Still in Milan.
some PR.
Okay. Oh, a covered bridge.
Yeah, but I want to go back that way first. I want to.
That's fine.
They're my way.
All right. So that was the Edison Complex. Statues over my shoulder. So it was the Menlo Park. So that group of buildings was his work environment. Henry Ford brought over stone by stone, and also the dirt underneath the buildings, and planted it here. So now we're going to go and try and find the Wright Brothers place. So to the left of the ice cream place, and everybody wants ice cream. See what that little building is. Looks like a little... Oh, we have to go in there. That's a photography studio.
I'm sure loving that the people are not in my picture.
Don't know what this building is. It says Sir John Bennett.
It's in my book.
Oh. Let's go see what the sign says. Sir John Jewelry Shop. It lost 3 stories. Yeah. Used to be 5 stories. So that guy would be 5 stories up. Very cool. Dining experience is currently closed. Oh. Very interesting.
Smoke trees are so cool.
Oh yeah. Dawn likes to smoke trees.
We can go down this road.
Oh, it's the merry-go-round. I was trying to figure out what that sound was. There. In there. Alright. Let's continue on. See what we can find. It's an old Model T. Or no, that's a... It has a T, but I don't think it's a T. Maybe it is a T. But it's a truck. And it actually is in use. Don't know if the Coleman was standard. Huh? Grimm Jewelry store.
Jewelry store? What?
Honey, I think it's closed.
Jewelry store.
Don't get too excited.
Wait, it says it's open. Lies.
Yeah. at all the pocket watches. So the Heinz house. And over there is the Wright Brothers. Right across the street from Mrs. D. Cohen's Dry Goods and Gents Furnishings. So there's where the Wright Brothers in the C. Webert building. Actually, it looks like the block. C. Webert block. Wright Brothers cycle. Da, da, da. Betters and Shank Undertakers. There was an interesting partner. Wheels for hire. Free air. Henny, next door is an Undertaker.
I know, I saw that.
Famous date, December 17, 1903, video of North Carolina.
Gaslight. No. Looks like the Schwins.
Yeah, it hasn't changed much.
Yeah.
That's an original.
Two
House there.
Oh.
Is it?
Yeah, that's an original bag.
Oh,
they
women
designed.
handlebars. Okay.
Yeah. Because they designed 3 different styles. Once they had the reputation of excellent mechanical repair gentlemen, they then launched into their own designs.
Okay.
So they have credibility at that point.
Oh, nice. It's kind of funny, some of the things we've been on, like our vacation we went to in Milan, Ohio, there was the birthplace of Edison, and then you come here, you get a connection, and then we went to Kill Devil's House.
And I'll tell you, Edison is another often misunderstood person because he didn't steal everybody's ideas.
Yeah.
He just improved.
He was brilliant as a child. And you look at what he did as a child, you go, oh my.
Yeah.
He read every book in the Detroit Library.
Yeah.
Every book. And it was smaller than granite, but still. That shows a love of learning.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks to his dear mother and his father, especially his mother, who was a teacher.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, think about, he was always experimenting when he was a child. See, that's where it comes from, and people assume that he stole, and they have this agenda, you know, with, what's his name?
Westinghouse.
The Westinghouse.
That's another story.
He wasn't a very nice person. He was pretty brutal. The other one, Tesla.
Oh, Tesla.
He respected Tesla to the nth degree, but he was more theoretical. Edison was more practical application. So if you blended the two, it'd be terrific. He just, and they parted ways eventually. Edison had more discipline in his personal life, so he could accomplish more because Tesla had a very disturbed personal life, and it made it hard for him. But we know he was brilliant, right? So
come on in.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Come on in.
Just like the one. This is so cool.
Yeah, it is so cool.
Nice. Literally so cool.
Original furniture in the shop, in the office, the safe, the desk.
There's no solder products in there.
No. I know. My husband has to get a new computer desk, and solder's a biggie, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we're just going to do something that's a little more lovely in the museum.
Every single thing the Wright Brothers did so famously was done in this place. I mean, they were successful and famous all over the world. This one is hard to believe. But you can believe it.
I believe it now.
With a high school education, this bicycle shop alone has everything they did. That's maybe unheard of. That's just fabulous. Two guys right now. Two remarkable young men from a very good family, Orville 32 and Wilbur 36 on that famous day, December 17, 1903. And no matter what you youngsters may think.
Talking to us? Talking to us.
Yeah, right.
I wasn't there.
Oh.
No, 1903, no, I don't think probably any of us were.
No, probably not. Yeah.
Yeah, again, back there, and I don't know if I said it or not, what you see back there, you'll see a reconstruction of the 16-foot center section. That's why the orange tape is there.
Yeah.
But it'll put a little perspective. That's the 40 feet 4 inches. That was the wingspan. Everything was built back there, meaning it was very labor intensive, I believe.
Is this the one of the replicas they have in Kitty Hawk? Who's the museum in Kitty Hawk in Fall?
Oh, there it is. So that's that middle section. So they had to build this in. So they had to build this in sections and then take it to Kitty Hawk somewhat, which is what I think they did. So they've got their drive train belt as well. Piston, steam piston, I would think. Propeller. Another one there.
This should be the grand finale.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure we got all this in, so.
Oh, look at here. Look at here.
Thank you for your information.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Oh, cool. Cool.
Welcome to you all. Welcome to you all, especially you.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Have you been here before? I have. Welcome back. It's still the original record of fighting your gun in Dayton, Ohio. Yes, we have the original.
Stacy had Orville. Orville's still alive, and he's got pictures, and he's got even has some samples. So all he's got to do is just hand that to somebody when you're like one of the world's first billionaires. You just simply take that and say, "Make this for me." And so it is. This is the original print, original carpet, all of that.
The carpet don't really go
None of it does. That's Victorian. And wallpaper on the ceilings, I hope never comes back.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Right?
Yeah, so
Can you imagine trying to put it on?
I cannot. I could not even imagine, because, you know, if there's such a thing as ADHD, I'm loaded with it. And so this house ought to drive me nuts.
Yeah.
It ought to make my eyes bang on each other. But I did have an interior decorator in here one day. It was slow, so I got a chance to say, "So tell me why my eyes aren't bouncing off each other." And she said, "It's because the furniture is wood. It's plain wood. Looking around you, all you see is wood. And every room has at least a wall or a ceiling that is either plain or white that allows it to draw in." Because I'm very comfortable, it's very cozy.
Yeah.
But she said, like, if you were to move our modern furniture in here, for instance, then your eyes would crisscross because it's so busy. So that's as good an explanation as I've heard about the place. So I gave her credit for it the first time I used it, and now it's mine. But
Big old safe.
These batteries are in the storage too.
Personal ability to millions of people around the world.
wow!
You are, sir, and the whole area.
I haven't.
Yeah.
Like, why is that green? Is that really a 15th one?
They didn't go to the Rouge factory
We
then.
dated in green in 1927. Green, blue, burgundy, Ulster.
That's
That's
a,
the end of the Model T era. And he was trying to keep the sales up. So we had to switch to making colors.
that's what my
Because
car.
Chevy was making theirs.
Oh, well, who was it we saw that? Was it the Edison that had all those different colors?
Yeah,
We saw
I think.
at the museum yesterday. I'm like,
Sorry, that's
But if it's the one, so you guys, if you go inside, you have to wear masks, that's what they're trying to say.
But he built the car.
No, not that.
So, okay. So,
well. Well, sorry, guys.
let's go look. So this is the guy that invented the first.
That's a cool rocking chair.
You can go inside, hold on, let's take a look in this house.
No. I wonder how you got in there.
Look at this.
The carpeting, wallpaper, and the railing for the pictures.
This was like a fire, the old-fashioned kind of fire. Oh, okay, somebody's here, and she tell you about it.
Grandma's bedroom. That would be Margaret and Patrick Ahern. Margaret and Patrick Ahern owned the property 3¼ miles from here. At one time they lived in a log cabin. This house was built to replace a log cabin. Now Patrick Ahern is a farmer. Is he doing well? If he can replace a log cabin with this house? Yeah. Sure is. Now in 1861, the house ended with this room. We think that was a door outside, that was a door outside, and this is still a door outside. The original house, over the Sunday parlor is another bedroom. Over Grandpa's room is a bedroom, and over Grandma's room is a bedroom. So 5 bedrooms, a Sunday parlor, and this room, which is everything else.
How many square feet was that?
That was a little over 1,500 square feet.
And that was like a big, that was like nice.
But, well, we came from a log cabin.
The fact that there's actual floors, I think is a win.
And the thing is that they were probably used to doing a lot of different things in a given amount of space, so this is no big deal. But the crux of the story is that Patrick and Margaret Ahern have to ask some of the local farmers to help them build the house. They can't build it themselves. One of the men that they have helped them build the house is William Ford. William Ford's family came from Ireland, the last of a very large family, because of the potato famine. They had to borrow money to get steerage passage to come here, and they came to this area in particular because they already had relatives. Two great uncles of Henry Ford had left Ireland and settled here as early as 1832. We don't even become a state until 1837. Well, William Ford was an apprentice carpenter in Ireland, and when he got here, he was a farmer, but he also got extra money by using his carpentry skills, so he could buy more land. Well, this time he got more than money for a job well done. He got a wife. You see, they had a foster daughter who was in her early 20s, and William Ford and Mary Lydigot Ahern fell in love. They married in April of 1861. They got that room upstairs, and the bedrooms upstairs were for their future children.
She did well.
She really So, William Ford and Mary Ford become parents in July of 1863 when Henry is born. And then they have a new baby every 2 years. Now, think about this room that they were doing everything in and add babies. Well, obviously that doesn't work. By 1871, William Ford's got his carpentry tools out. He adds another bedroom just in case they're going to need it in the future. The big extension is the next room where they can move eating, cooking and dining into that space, allowing this to be an everyday parlor, a sitting room, a place for the family to relax. He's not done because eventually William Ford adds on a final kitchen. So in the front, when you don't realize there's an upstairs or that this house keeps going, it looks like it's going to be a little house. It's a little over 2,000 square feet. It is typical for farmers who have access to a major city. Most people would say, well, this is big for those days. Well, you can't just look at time, you have to look at location. 3¼ miles from here was less than an hour by wagon to downtown Detroit. I don't know how many people there were in 1860 in Detroit, but Patrick Ahern could have been out of a log cabin into a house he built. By 1876, which is the time period we share with you, there's over 100,000 people in Detroit. It is a metropolis. There is commerce, there is culture, there is industry. William Ford is a pretty astute businessman. He grows hay and grains for the horses in the city as a cash crop and sells to livery stables. He's got money all year round. He's also doing produce, butter, timber, boarding horses, all those other things the farmers do, cash crop. So Henry's younger sister Margaret says, as children, they never wanted for anything. Think about that. Never wanted for anything. And indeed had a fortunate child. Except young Henry. How old are you, young man?
5.
5? Henry was 2 years older than you, and he realized he was thinking in terms of wheels. He was mechanically minded. And he wasn't interested in the farm like his poor father would have liked him to be. Well, we're lucky that he stuck to his guns because he ended up changing the world. He restored this house 100 years ago. You're looking at his memories. He had to save it from road construction. That's what got the ball rolling for this. He built Greenfield Village and opened in 1929. Doesn't bring this house here until 1944. We opened it to the public in 1953. One of my questions is, I wonder how Henry feels about us in his beloved mother's home. I don't know. Some days I think, well, okay, and other days I think, maybe he would have wanted to kept it for himself. Because sadly, his mother passed when he was 4 and 12. He said this house without his mother was like a watch without a mainspring. That's pretty empty.
He was 12?
He was 12. But see, Mom's the one that recognized his mechanical skills as something that should be nourished and encouraged. So he called her his champion. So I think it's absolutely interesting that he's almost 60 years old when he restores this house, and to me that's when he finally comes to grips with her passing. And he and his wife, he bought her the organ so she could play for him, and he'd sit in the rocking chair. This is where he was happy. This is where he was content. His mother's house.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
you so much. You're welcome.
I missed the grandfather room.
Oh, like one right.
Oh.
Oh, there's so many stories for this house. Oh my God. The whole village. The whole village, yes. But we have a basic manual, but when I started working in the house, we started collecting all the questions we couldn't answer.
Oh, yeah.
And then I researched them and wrote them all. Well, our manual's this thick.
I bet.
It's, and that's not even the stories that I've heard from people.
Yeah.
And this house is unique in that I've been in the house for what I wanted.
This is cool.
So I'm using that generation that was more
And the kitchen.
And